from that standpoint. In addition, you could say that we had most modules tended to fulfill one function. So they were very dedicated modules. And, you know, that kind of carves out strange, because I'm going to say today's modules are much more complex. They can deal with multiple communication streams. They can deal with multiple functionality. And this is some of the limitations that -2 had that we just really needed to relook at for -3. -2 was really concerned on those early days of products were just coming out, and we wanted to make sure that we were not testing some breadboard or something, but actual production modules. I would say, if anything, in Fips 140-3 in this time frame, we're more concerned about operational assurance. We think that the industry knows how to make production boxes, and so there's not as much. However, we've not had the communication from the boxes for assurance that we are seeing needs for today. So finally, and it goes back to the module, the older module, it was a function, security function most of the time. These days, a lot of our modules are pretty full-featured and really try to address cybersecurity, which I would define as the communication of all the security equipment and the presentation of providing security features for an environment. So how do these affect module services? So let's go back a little bit. If I talked in -2, I would say it's running in an approved mode. In -3, we're going to be talking about, is it running an approved service? It can be running multiple approved services. So that's a huge difference, especially when you think back, and we had the indicator, and this was usually a higher level, an indicator saying we were in an approved mode. Now we need an indicator for each service, and that seems to be a difficulty for a lot of people. But look at the use for that as we are asking us to be more and more integrated. Knowing the services and the availability of those are very important. At the same time, Fips 140- knows that you don't just run approved services, that there are non-approved services which are running, non-sensitive information or services. So it is up to the user, it is up to the vendor to create these modules that can multiplex and provide multiple levels of service in a single module. Does it have to? Absolutely not. It could do one service, and at that time you could almost say it's the exact same as the Fips 140-2 idea of, I have a light for because I have one service. But I think in this day and age, we're kidding ourselves if we think that that's where a lot of our security equipment is. So we, in order to get through this program, the assessment has to be done for each service to be in an approved mode. That has to be done. So I guess I would pose the question, given that that has already had to be done, is it really that out of scope to say, okay, so let's monitor that. Let's see that if those are in fact happening, so that we can do an indication that we're good. And that really becomes, I think, important for IT shops. So I think that's that centralized capability, the status. I think that's really important for today's. So let's look a little bit more about indicators. So indicators originally, we would say maybe was logging. Logging was logging has never been very popular. Well, from a security standpoint, because there are so many issues involved with that, and because of the support of only one or two security services at the same time. So now we are we've spent lots of money in the IT arena for monitoring services, monitoring hardware, and it only seems fair that we need to bring security validated modules back into where they can operate in that environment and in what I might call the native mode, as opposed to something that's had to be custom fit or custom made in order to support that. So I would say that this monitoring using these indicators needs to be incorporated more. And there are a lot of programs that are beginning to do this. I just throw up one here as an example, OpenSCAP, okay, where I have seen in some of the early SCAPs do some marvelous things, right? With not only seeing what the status of the module is, but also being able to do some patch management, create some baselines, and even incorporate some logging as it's needed to do. So I would say that these are very important. In order to do a lot of these type indicators, I think there's also another thing that is very important, and that is some self-initiated services. So I want to just give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So a lot of times you'll have a box and it needs to just, when it comes up, not the first time, but it comes up operationally, it needs to be able to communicate to another system, whether that be for an IPsec link or a TLS or something, so that it can provide such things as secure status information and control back and forth. But we've really not had a good way to do that up till now, because we've never, everything has, when it came to the security, had to be initiated by an operator, usually a crypto officer. But as a minimum, somebody had to do it. So these self-initiated services, I think, are going to be taken advantage of for good reason, for authentication paths, for back channel communication, and mobile links, or those type things. The nice thing about them is that if power goes down, if network goes down, whatever it is, when this box is rebooted, it can bring itself up without having somebody to have to log in to start those features. And I think that's going to be really important. So I think one of the things that was most difficult for this had to do with some of the authentication services. So we had to put this self-initiated service as a feature that the CO would log in, would set up, right? And then it can take the authentication from that and move forward. But authentication has been a major roadblock. So this is one way we solved it. Another way I think Fips 140-3 is attempting to solve it is by the expansion of authentication. So I've been doing, anybody who knows me knows that I have spent a significant amount of time lately working on authentications. I've written articles about we're not going to kill passwords, but you know, there's a lot of people trying, and I'm hoping that they have luck. I have nothing against killing the password, but still, whether or not they do, the real question is, you know, what is this future going to be like? I should, before I get too far into it, these next three topics, which is authentication, CVEs, and non-evasive, these are things that I would say can be more easily developed by CMVP. So, and I would expect them to mature not only through the Fips 140-3 and CMVP, but also through ISO over the years. So I think we're looking at some recognition that these things need improvement, and how do we move forward with them. So certainly, if you look in -2, we seem to have measured everything as to 1 in a million or 100K in a minute. What's the probability? What's the probability that somebody can get into the system? Just pure accident. So, but those things, I mean, biometrics has been, you know, practically passed through the eye of the needle to try and get through, because the mechanisms are not the same, and they're not easily converted from one to the other. So I'm really happy that authentication has opened up. The good or bad thing is that it has incredible flexibility now. There's only a few requirements. There are still some requirements in -3, but much more of the requirements have been left to the validation authorities. So those validation authorities, at least for CMVP, we're going to try and manage these a lot better because we can than we have in the past. I do believe that usability is going to become an important component that's really not been seen before, because I think usability has been a much overlooked factor in the use of authentication. If you cannot get users to use it, then, or if they have difficulty, then the support and ultimately the strength of the authentication really needs to be in question. So I think that factor has got to be rolled into that, and I think you'll be seeing a lot more of that in the future. Interestingly, they did add, ISO added two-factor authentication for the highest security level. I'm a little bit surprised about that, but certainly, you know, from the government services or whatever, you know, you would probably get a strong recommendation that in fact would be the case. I don't know where that one's going, but that's one we're going to be living with for a while. And so that's just kind of the way I think that is. I think there's a steep learning curve here of how CMVP manages what the vendors have to provide and how the labs do testing. I don't think this necessarily been worked out. I would love to tell you that it has. But if you really want to, you know, if you want an absolute certainty, then stick with the 1 in a million and 100K in a minute. It probably will get there, but I don't think any of us want that. So there are various documents out there on how to make better authentication, and I'm certainly going to continue to work on trying to come up with better metrics on how those can be created and measured. and used. So so that's a lot of work, but I think that's something that needs to happen, and I'm really glad that we have a chance now to have that. And I hope you guys can work with me to make that so that we can all agree what authentication needs to be. So we'll continue with that. So another steep learning curve. This time is more for just the labs and the CMVP. I think are CVEs. So CVEs are probably something most vendors are very, if not painfully, but very aware of. They are using those to manage their programs, I think, the majority of them. Certainly the users are beginning to use these for risk management, for day-to-day management of their systems. So the product vendors, they will be told, or they will be told that people are taking advantage of vulnerabilities because they're listed. They're out there and listed now. Not all of them, but as they are, typically if people behave themselves, those are given to the vendors, and they can put that on their sheet to fix. And that's where I would like to see CMVP become more integrated in the process of rolling out a validated fixes for CVEs. A lot of labs are like, well, there's a lot here or whatever. And my answer typically is that the vendors have to have a handle on that. They have, or the product is just not going to survive in this day and age. And so I would tend to, while be critical thinking of what vendors are doing, still trust a lot of the vendors. They want their products out there, they want them to work, and they want to manage so that their salesmen can continue to sell the products, and they can continue to support those products. So they have a huge vested interest in making this CVE work for them. And I think it would be a mistake if CMVP does not try and also become part of the solution rather than part of the obfuscation for the communication between vendors and users. So that to me is a very important topic. I guess the final topic, I hope I'm not taking too much time here, or back on track, I don't know, is the non-evasive. Now, I think of all the ones, and I think I said this earlier, of all the ones that are cause most people the most concern is non-evasive. And I think in general, if I was to tell anybody anything, I would say take a deep breath and breathe, because non-invasive, it's two things. One is right now it's in the vendor's control. Okay, it's under the vendor's control. And number two is currently, and this will change, but currently there are no requirements for non-invasive. So again, is it something that we need to be working on? Is it something that we need to be becoming aware of, and becoming aware of how to measure it? Absolutely. There have been some ISO documents released in this past year that have finally given us some scope on how that's done, how we can go about as a first cut on making sure that non-invasive is not a problem. Before I get too much into that, though, let's just kind of say, you know, who is this for? If I'm in an IT shop, very deep in the equipment, chances are there's not a lot of security threat from non-invasive. Now, non-invasive would be monitoring the power or monitoring the emanations. Okay, so those two types of things are attacked, and in a weird way, under if you look at the Fips 140-2, they kind of tried to do something similar if you looked at kind of the FCC requirement, but there were a lot of problems with that. It was better than nothing, I think, but I think that we can do better. So as I said, the big thing is the vendor, they should know their user, they should know their product, and they should know if there's a problem. So if there's a problem, they need to address it. If they need to address it, they need to tell CMVP so that they can incorporate that into their validation. And right now, those requirements are not the toughest in the world. In fact, I would say in general, since we have no measurements, it probably will be reviewed as an NA, but nonetheless, it will go in the security policy. It will be acknowledged, okay? And I think, you know, for people who feel that their product, it's important for it to address non-invasive, I think that's a whole lot better than what we had before. As non-invasive develops, we're also going to be having the laboratories get very involved in some of the testing. And I will just tell you, the current testing, the ISO testing right now, is basically just trying to establish that it cannot find enough noise, if you will, in the output, either through the power or through the emanations for the radio frequencies and such, that can be connected to the operation of the crypto. And so if that floor is high enough, it basically passes, and there's a measured time that you have to do that. It's not to the ends of the earth. I can't remember offhand exactly how many hours it is, but I think it's around the order of less than a day of monitoring. So it's a very those current tests are actually fairly easy compared to if you look into non-invasive and you look into the work that's being done in order to try and capture, let's say, passwords or I'm sorry, keys or that type thing. That work is extremely intensive, and this is looking at it at a much higher level to basically say, if you can't see it, then there's really not much assessment that you can do, and that's a first cut. Again, that's not what's happening today, but I think over the next couple of years, that's what you're going to see. And again, until ISO is changed, it is the vendor that says, oh yeah, there's a non-invasive issue, and I have decided to address it. And so unless they have decided to do that, then this will become NA, and people won't be required to provide any information on it. So those are kind of it for me. Those are my top, I don't know, however that much was, 6, I think. Possibilities, areas of product. I don't know if you want to even call it improvement, but migration to supporting the modern IT center. A lot of those, I think, had been made more difficult with -2, and our -3 is kind of getting out of the way and helping us address those issues for the user. So I think with that, I'm going to ask and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please unmute and please state your name before you asking your question.
I gave a perfect presentation. What more could I ask?
I did notice one in the chat. Maybe I'll just read it out. This is from William Shelton. Why wouldn't NIST align with NIAP on the CVE issue? It isn't practical to validate CVE fixes.
So since there's really nothing right now that says what we're doing a lot on that, I'm really pushed to say that there's no alignment. I don't know how to really address that. What I can tell you is that somehow both us and NIAP have to get this connection between the vendor and the user. And when there's, we can go to the ends of the earth. We have a very, very fixed thing of what we look at. But if there's a problem with the module, no matter how much it's not on our scope to test, we get the blame somehow. And we understand it's not ours. We're understanding that, but we also don't want to slow down the vendor. We want to help them as much as we can to make sure that their product that's out in the field is one that has been validated and does not have unnecessary bugs. Now, again, I can't tell you what they're going to do as far as what they're going to requirement, but I think that it's basically what the vendor feels is their best. And worst case is that's what's going to be presented to the user. Best case, we're going to help him, help the vendor manage those issues as best we can. So it probably did not answer the question because I honestly, I don't spend, my focus is in getting -3 up and not spending a lot of time with NIAP. And that's something I hope to later have the luxury for. But right now it is standing up a brand new service, if you will.
Great. Other questions?
Hey, this is Bill Shelton. Can I ask a second question?
Absolutely.
One of the challenges today is it's not possible to Fips validate a cryptographic module that exists in a cloud, especially that exists only in a cloud. And increasingly, that will be the case. There will be cloud services that do not have the ability to be instantiated in a Fips lab. Will Fips 140-3 be able to accommodate that situation?
So good question, and so first I want to answer: will it answer the validation differently? Because there are several labs working through the CMUF to come up with what additional requirements there are to using a validated module in the cloud. And I realize that's not quite what you're asking, but that is also part of that solution. So products that only exist in the cloud Yeah, I think so my thinking here is in 2015 we didn't have a lot of those. Are the requirements with that thought in mind? Probably not. Is there some flexibility in there? I sincerely hope there is, and that we can take advantage of to make it better. And perhaps as we can identify the issues of how that can be done, I would say that everyone, not just CMVP, everyone needs to work with ISO to better address how we might best test that. And so I think I'll leave it there. We're going to interpret the best we can, but I'm not sure that I could list the issues there. But I think they do need to be captured, and they do need to be made available to ISO especially, but also to CMVP to see if there are things that we can do a little differently to address those. Because I agree with you, the modules in the cloud is something that we're going to have to address.
Okay, there's a couple more questions in the chat. I'll read the first one. I think it's from Ken White. Will Fips 140-3 change the approach to validating software modules that are run purely on public cloud, e.g. not on a specific piece of hardware? Thinking specifically about things like modules called by network and volume encryption libraries, where generic x86 with AES-NI is about as specific as it gets. Thanks.
So I cannot speak for CMVP here, and I do not want to do that. As a personal thing, looking at those things, having worked with VMs for a long time, I question it a little bit as to why we can't do things. So historically, every VM I have been on has tried to emulate a particular instance and as closely as they can. And sometimes the issue is more of how closely can they emulate or simulate, and I'm sorry, I can't immediately tell you which one of those I want to say, becomes the best. The fact that you can put it on any piece of hardware or whatever, almost everyone I have ever seen, they abstract it so that they can run on a given platform. And that's not just for security, that's just for development and everything else too. So I do question a little bit the way that we may be looking at virtual machines at the current, but that, and I will also acknowledge that I need to get smarter as they further develop.
Okay, the next question is from Richard Sauls. Any changes impact you see to the 2-3 current open source validations?
So do I see, let's see if I got the question right. Do I see changes to the current open source validations?
I think that's it, yeah.
Okay. Do I see changes? I see changes to them every day. Do I see a change in the way that they will validate? I certainly see a lot of worry about service indicators, and perhaps that's valid worry for the way they are currently structured. However, I would also say that the community at large, i.e. those that the open source is serving, also would like better visibility as to the correctness of those functions and what they're providing. So I think we will have to work together. I couldn't tell you right now how that is best done, but I totally get that somebody who has made through the hurdles of -2 and now has to do -3 is looking at a big lift. That being said, their products are still going to be validated for the next 5-6 years while they migrate to the -3. So I'm not sure that everybody, I hope everybody understands that the -3 validation, while excellent, is not going to be the basis of our IT security for at least the next 3, 4, 5 years. That it's going to have to rest a lot on the -2 because that's where the bulk of validated modules are, and they're going to be around for at least the next 6 years.
Okay, and the next question from Corey Clark. Will Fips 140-3 make it easier to confirm that a claimed module is present in larger products, i.e. software module inside an appliance?
Okay, I hate to do this to you, but could you read it one more time?
Yeah. Will Fips 140-3 make it easier to confirm that a claimed module is present in a larger product, i.e. software module inside an appliance?
So will it make it easier? I sincerely hope that it has the capability of making it easier. And I would say that is resting on the delivery of those service indicators throughout the system. You know, a lot of any type of embedded module is at the mercy of whatever's embedding it to be able to communicate through. So now we're not only asking for modules to communicate the status, but also for the things that consume those and use those to be able to pass that information in the correct manner also.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions? Let's make this the last question.
I must not be giving good answers.
Actually, it's John Gray, if you can hear me. But
yes.
Go ahead, John.
What about the dates? Because I think it was September 2021 was the cutoff date for 140-2. I was just wondering if that has changed at all, or yeah, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question, and maybe I mean that's certainly one I have to live with every day. Yes, -3 testing will begin on September 22nd, 2020. Unless, you know, I mean, there's always something, but unless there's something that's really big, and we can think of a few, but every effort will be made to be fully standing up on -3 validations and to put -2 validations in maintenance mode in September 22nd, 2021. It's very difficult and expensive for the government to try and keep reviewers, testers, labs validated for both of these, given that they're similar but not the same. And we need, I think, any of you that have a module in for validation, you know that the queue is quite long, and that anything that we can do to help that along, we need to do. So there's a lot of pressure to move it, to keep it at September 22nd, 2021.
Okay, so if I'm starting a module validation in the next few months, I should really be looking at 140-3 now. right? Because by the time it was to get through, there's probably no chance of 140-2 getting through.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, if you have something ready to go that's leveraged off of what you have or whatever, then yeah, maybe you can get through, because September 22nd, 2021 is when the last one is accepted. It will still go through the system as long as it takes to be validated, but it will also its validation, if you will go to historical in 2026. So that's there's a lot of flexibility of how somebody strategically would want to work those, and I really can't answer that. There are some products that are quick to build for market. There are some products that are extremely long to build to market. If I had a long to build to market, yes, I would probably look at things that I can take advantage of in -3 to have a new module that is much more featured coming out under -3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. I think we'll make that the last question. Kim, I want to thank you for making time to present this. It's great information. And let everybody know that we're going to have some other webcasts coming up. So we're going to announce those by email. And we'll keep you updated on where we're going with ICMC in August as the situation becomes more clear. So thanks everybody for participating, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you, guys.